War of words. Conservative senators question the amount of taxpayer money Planned Parenthood received from the Paycheck Protection Program. Coronavirus pandemic, where America stands in the fight against COVID-19 leading up to the Memorial Day weekend. Investigating abuse cases, why Pope Francis ordered an apostolic visitation of an archdiocese in Germany. And inner city revitalization. The Archbishop of Baltimore shares new initiatives to serve young people. On EWTN News Nightly for Friday, May 28th, 2021. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. The Senate is expected to vote on a bipartisan bill aimed at countering China's global economic and political influence. It was nearly derailed after last-minute opposition. GOP senators argued the bill was being rushed and insist more changes need to be made. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales reports. Eric?
Well, I tell you what, Tracy, it's been a wild 24 hours up here at the Senate. You know, senators have been debating the Innovation and Competition Act. They actually started it yesterday and continued on until 3 o'clock in the morning. They came back again at 9 o'clock this morning to continue on, but the Democratic-led Senate wanted to be able to get this passed before they go on vacation, which starts all next week. But GOP lawmakers say that they're not going to be able to pass a bill that they haven't read.
One cannot make very significantly drastic changes to legislation in the middle of the night and then claim that it's regular order and that regular order demands an immediate vote on that measure.
One change not in the Innovation and Competition Act has conservatives concerned. The amendment by Senators Mike Braun and James Lankford to protect the creation of life failed. To ban animal-human hybrid research where scientists experiment with mixing DNA of different species.
We were shocked that our Democratic colleagues all voted in bloc and said, no, we want to continue research, blending humanity and animal life together. I think it's a terrible idea. I think there's a lot of unintended consequences out of that, and there's a lot of moral and ethical issues that the Chinese are ignoring that we should not ignore.
Senator Lankford tells me intel reports show China has already successfully mixed monkey and human DNA, which lived in a lab for 19 days. Also on Capitol Hill.
How many first draw PPP loans have been approved to Planned Parenthood affiliates?
So specifically on specific borrowers, the SBA has not commented on specific borrowers.
Well, I'm asking you. I'm in charge of oversight.
This week, during a Senate Small Business Committee hearing, Ranking Member Senator Rand Paul continued his effort to stop taxpayer dollars from funding abortions.
So you are in defiance of Congress. You will do what you want, not what Congress wants.
We have provided you a full listing.
You have not provided us with any listing of Planned Parenthood affiliates who've received money.
Senator Paul tells me the Small Business Administrator, Isabel Guzman, should be held liable.
I think that there's some danger that she could be actually personally culpable for breaking the law, and she is stonewalling us.
In other news, Senate Democrats also tried to get a vote to be able to create a January 6th commission, but it wasn't able to get enough votes to get it out of cloture. So Senator Schumer says that he does plan to bring it in the near future, possibly next month. From the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
President Joe Biden is optimistic the U.S. is emerging from the coronavirus pandemic as vaccination rates in the country continue to improve.
If we succeed, we can celebrate our independence from the virus together on the 4th of July as we celebrate our independence as a nation. And the future is only going to get brighter because there will be no doubt what America can achieve when we do it together.
Speaking in Alexandria, Virginia, the president says the U.S. is within 8% of his national benchmark for 70% of U.S. adults to receive at least one dose of the vaccine by July 4th. President Biden also released his federal budget proposal today. It calls for $6 trillion in spending. He would also help pay for it by raising taxes on corporations and wealthy families. The president's budget also incorporates the administration's 8-year, $2.3 trillion infrastructure proposal and $1.8 trillion American Families Plan. March for Life organizers criticized President Biden's budget for leaving out the Hyde Amendment, which helps prevent taxpayer funding for abortion. Tom McCluskey writes this administration does not value human life, nor does it represent the wishes of mainstream America on such a critical issue. Microsoft is reporting a newly attempted cyber attack by state-backed Russian hackers. They tapped into an email marketing list from the U.S. Agency for International Development. Counterfeit spear phishing emails were sent to 150 different organizations. The same hackers are suspected for a breach of the infotech firm SolarWinds last year. A Catholic Hong Kong democracy advocate, Jimmy Lai, received his third prison sentence today for peaceful protests. 7 others got months in prison for organizing and taking part in the October 2019 protest. Japan is extending a targeted coronavirus state of emergency until June 20th. Prime Minister Suga says infection rates remain high in Tokyo and elsewhere, despite an overall decrease. He calls the extension a precaution to avoid possible new infections ahead of the Tokyo Olympics. He acknowledged those who want the July Games canceled. Yesterday, a Japanese health minister worried the Olympics would spread COVID-19 and its variants. The UK has authorized use of the Johnson & Johnson coronavirus vaccine. Britain now has 4 options to combat infections as officials worry about the variant from India. But pro-life groups warn the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is made from abortion-derived cells. Pope Francis is sending representatives to Germany amid fierce criticism of its handling of abuse cases. Cardinal Anders Arborealis of Stockholm and Bishop Johannes van den Hende of Rotherham will visit the Archdiocese of Cologne in the first half of June. The 2 envoys will work to get a comprehensive picture of the complex pastoral situation in the Archdiocese. EWTN Newsroom correspondent Colm Flynn joins us now. Colm, great to see you. So tell us about the pastoral situation in the Archdiocese of Cologne.
Good evening, Tracy. Well, in March, the Archdiocese of Cologne published an 800-page report on an investigation into church officials' handling of past cases of sexual abuse. Now, the report covered a time frame from 1975 to 2018 and examined over 200 files in detail with the aim of identifying failures when it came to dealing with sexual abuse cases or claims and possible violations of the law. It also looked at those who were responsible for those failures. In the end, it found that 75 cases in which high-ranking officials neglected their duties. And as a result of this, 3 Cologne church officials, including the 2 auxiliary bishops, were suspended from their duties. The report, however, it's important to note, was not audited by an external commission. Now, Cardinal Rainer Maria Wojcki, Archbishop of Cologne since 2014, he said that they needed a thorough, clean and substantial base in order to clearly identify the Church's organisational responsibilities and to be able to prevent the same mistakes from being made in the future. The report did absolve Cardinal Wojcki himself of any neglect of his legal duty with respect to abuse victims, and he said that he had fully informed Pope Francis in February about the situation in Cologne. Now, Pope Francis is sending 2 envoys to further investigate German church officials of their handling of past sexual abuse cases.
Colm, is it normal for the Pope to send special envoys?
Yes, Tracy, Pope Francis and previous popes have sent envoys to different parts of the world, to countries or religious orders, to better understand difficult situations. For example, Pope Francis in 2018 sent a representative to Chile that was suffering from a big abuse scandal at the time, which resulted in all of the bishops resigning in the country. The Archbishop of Cologne welcomes the papal envoys, whose mission is to report directly back to the Pope here in Rome of the investigation and the consequences of it.
Colm, before I let you go, what else can you tell us is happening in the Vatican?
Well, Tracy, as we mentioned earlier this month, the Pontifical Council for Promoting the New Evangelization has been hosting the Rosary Marathon. Every day this month, a different Marian shrine from around the world prayed a rosary upon the Pope's request to pray for an end to the pandemic. And on Monday, May the 31st, Pope Francis will end the Rosary Marathon here in Rome, praying in front of an image of Our Lady Untier of Knots in the Vatican gardens. And you can follow along on our EWTN Vatican social media pages, starting at 11:45 Eastern. Tracy?
Okay, thank you so much, Colm Flynn, EWTN News Rome correspondent. Thank you again.
Thank you, Tracy.
Coming up, presidential visit. What President Joe Biden told the audience this afternoon at a Virginia military base. And border crisis. What we're learning about the surge of migrants along the Arizona border. The President and First Lady are saluting those who have given their lives in military service after the terrorist attacks of September 11th, 2001.
Many of you likely have lost friends and colleagues in Afghanistan and Iraq. I know this is personal to you, especially as you head into Memorial Day weekend. We as a nation will always remember and pay tribute to those we lost.
The president says the U.S. needs to persevere in a global conflict between democracies and autocracies. He made his remarks this afternoon in Langley, Virginia. Vice President Kamala Harris says new global challenges confront our national defense.
Just think, a deadly pandemic can spread throughout the globe in just a matter of months. A gang of hackers can disrupt the fuel supply of a whole seaboard.
The vice president spoke during commencement exercises at the U.S. Naval Academy today. Well, according to U.S. Customs and Border Protection, in an 8-day span between May 17th and May 24th, Border Patrol agents apprehended 10 convicted sex offenders in the Del Rio sector of Texas just after they crossed into the U.S. illegally. What's more, the majority of the criminals were apprehended in some of the most remote areas. Joining us now to talk about the situation at the border in nearby Arizona is Mark Brnovich, Attorney General for the state of Arizona. Mr. Attorney General, welcome back. Great to be with you again. As I just mentioned, border agents apprehended several convicted sex offenders in just a matter of days in Texas, and they were found in very remote areas. Does that concern you, as I know your state also has a lot of remote areas where people can escape detection?
Yeah, Tracy, this should concern everyone, not just me. As you know, we have multiple lawsuits right now against the Biden administration, and this is something we keep trying to tell folks, that this is not staying in Texas. It's not staying in Arizona. It's going to affect this entire country. And between the cartels enriching themselves off of the drug trade and human trafficking trade going across our border, we know that there's been a record amount of sex offenders that have been apprehended. Just the first 4 months of this year has equaled all of the entirety of last year. We know we're seeing record amounts of, 3,000 increase in the sector you're just talking about of sex offenders that have been apprehended. And furthermore, in one of our lawsuits about the Biden administration's failure to deport people with deportation orders, we know that there are literally people being released from state prisons in Texas and Arizona and other places that have been convicted of crimes like assault and kidnapping and arson and sex offenses that are being released because ICE is not picking them up and deporting them. So it's terrible. It's a terrible situation. It's a crisis, and it's going to be a tragedy because the Biden administration refuses to do anything, and they're going to endanger all of our neighborhoods no matter where you live.
The last time you and I talked was about a month ago. Can you give us sort of an update of where things stand right now in your state? Have things gotten any better at the border?
I would argue no. In fact, they've gotten worse. We know that just the latest numbers we've seen is literally another 180,000 people have illegally crossed the border. Just in the last month, the data was released. So since Vice President Biden has been appointed as the border czar, and just that period, about 470,000 people that we know of, or we estimate, have crossed the border illegally. And Tracy, that's like the entire population of Minneapolis or Kansas City coming across just since she's been the border czar. So the crisis has gotten worse. We know that there are people that are coming into this country that are voluntarily surrendering themselves because they know the Biden administration is decriminalized and incentivize people coming here. But then you get the situation that you referred to in that just a minute ago about these sex offenders who are trying to actively get away. We know the number of pursuits here. If I talk to the county sheriffs, every day now there's pursuits going on with people that don't want to be apprehended. So you have this group of folks that we know about that want to be in this country. They think the Biden administration is, open the door. But what about all these gotaways? What about all these people that are trying to evade capture? And then we find out that many of them are criminals, including sex offenders. That should trouble everyone. And shame on the Biden administration for not doing more to protect Americans' public safety.
Well, we have about a minute or left, but I want to ask you this last question. I know that about 20 state attorney generals, including yourself, recently wrote to Education Secretary Miguel Cardona, basically telling him that you oppose teaching critical race theory in our schools. Can you tell us more about that and why you all feel that CRT is harmful to our children?
We could do a whole hour on this, Tracy. The short answer is the Biden administration wants to give grant money and incentivize schools teaching essentially critical race theory and the 1619 Project. That undermines everything this country stands for. It's not historically accurate. And I think that as AGs, we need to make sure the Biden administration knows we will sue them if they try to use our tax dollars in order to enforce this neo-Marxist indoctrination on our kids. Let's make no mistake about it. Critical race theory is all about undermining and dividing this country so people don't understand what the real American history is. This was a nation forged in liberty, forged in Judeo-Christian values, and we need to make sure students understand that, not that they think that somehow this is a terrible country with a terrible past. Are we a perfect union, Tracy? No, but the framers, what they created was a nation forged in liberty that guaranteed individual rights with an idea that rights don't come from government, they come from our Creator.
Well, unfortunately, we have to leave it right there. Mr. Attorney General, thank you so much for coming on. I always appreciate your time.
Thank you, Tracy.
Up next, a new opportunity for students. The Archbishop of Baltimore describes the inspiration behind a new school. And rite of passage. A member of the Spanish royal family celebrates a church sacrament. The Archdiocese of Baltimore has started initiatives directed primarily at the inner city.
Our mission is accompaniment, and what that means is we really want to give Christ a home and remain with him.
Source of All Hope officially launched in August 2019. It is focused on ministering to homeless men and women. The Archdiocese of Baltimore is also behind the first school in years to be built in Baltimore's inner city. Mother Lange School in West Baltimore is set to open in September. Joining us now is Archbishop William Lori, head of the Archdiocese of Baltimore. Your Excellency, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it. We understand Mother Lange School is the first new Catholic school to be built in Baltimore in 60 years. That's so exciting. Before we talk about the school, though, can you tell us a little bit more about Mother Mary Lange?
Well, Mother Mary Lange came to Baltimore from the Caribbean before the Civil War. She's a woman of color, and she began to educate women of color in the city of Baltimore prior to the Civil War. So in every sense, a pioneer educator, a pioneer Catholic educator. But she also went on to found the Oblate Sisters of Providence, which is the only African-American congregation of religious women, which is happily headquartered here in the Archdiocese of Baltimore, but which is spread out through the Middle Atlantic and the South. So Mother Lange is also on the road to sainthood, and we earnestly pray that she will be declared blessed and then a saint in the near future.
Yeah, and can you also talk to us, why exactly the school was built and who plans to go there?
The Archdiocese of Baltimore has always been very dedicated to educating the young people who live within the city, particularly in the underserved neighborhoods. And we've always had a series of what we call community schools. It's been difficult. It's a challenge to sustain those schools. But the decision was made a few years ago to build a brand new school, to close two schools that were in inappropriate facilities, and to build a brand new, beautiful 21st century school on the west side of Baltimore that could accommodate even more children than we were serving before. And so over the past few years, we raised about $27 million. And lo and behold, the dream came true. We got the keys to our new building a few weeks ago. And I must say, it is a truly beautiful school. It is a way of saying that the lives of the young people that we are privileged to serve truly matter. And we will give these young people a truly great education and the possibility for success in every sense of the word in their future lives.
So exciting. And as you know, it was a national story when the Institute of Notre Dame, one of the oldest Catholic girls' schools in Baltimore, closed for good last year. Do you see Mother Lange School as sort of a renewed sign of hope for Catholic schools?
Our Catholic schools in general throughout the Archdiocese of Baltimore, which is the city of Baltimore and 9 counties of Maryland, have actually been doing well. We've had to close some schools over time because of shifting populations, changes in demography, the need to have better facilities and things of that nature. But I would say that the opening of the Mother Lange School is a sign of hope. It's meant to be an expression of our commitment to Catholic education and to the city of Baltimore and to its residents. It's a way of saying we are here to stay.
Well, yesterday we reported that next week marks 200 years for the Baltimore Basilica. Would you mind talking about the significance of the first U.S. cathedral?
The cathedral, the Basilica of the Assumption, was established shortly after the Diocese of Baltimore was established. That was in 1789. John Carroll laid the cornerstone for the Basilica in 1806. And it really is the mother church of the Catholic Church in the United States. It's the original cathedral. It stands, as St. John Paul II said, as a symbol of religious liberty. It is a building that was designed by Benjamin Henry Latrobe, the architect of the Capitol, and it reflects a deep, beautiful Catholicism and at the same time the spirit of the new republic. Through the years, it has been the scene of much church history. The provincial councils of Baltimore, all seven of them took place within the Basilica, and the 3 plenary councils of Baltimore as well. And I think to this day, more bishops have been consecrated in the Basilica than in any other cathedral in the United States. So in every sense, it is the mother church of the Catholic Church in the United States. And I'm happy to say that it is a very active, young, mission-driven parish in the heart of Baltimore City to this very day.
Well, Your Excellency, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. We're grateful. Archbishop William Lori, head of the Archdiocese of Baltimore, thank you again.
Most welcome.
Well, if you know a child taking part in confirmation this time of year, then you can tell them they're not alone. Even royals are celebrating the sacrament. Spain's Princess Leonor received the sacrament of confirmation today. She renewed her Christian faith along with her classmates at the parish of the Assumption of Our Lady in Madrid. Princess Leonor's father, King Philippe VI, will also serve as her godfather. And we thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.